Welcome to Evolve Your Blueprint,
where we explore the concept of evolving
and discuss our journey as individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds.
Our mission is to bring real conversations,
relate through storytelling,
and empower you to evolve with us. Let's evolve together. Welcome back. We're season 2 with Evolve Your Blueprint. We're so excited to be here. We're coming in hot. We took a little hiatus, but today we're talking about coming back and restarting without regrets, getting back to the things that matter. That's the topic of the day. We're going to talk about how do we get started, what gets in the way, and all of the things in between. So welcome back, and let's get into it. And with that, let's get into it, guys. How was it getting back and being here and getting this started for you?
Oh, yeah, great question. I mean, I felt like our break was definitely much needed for sure. And I missed you all. I sure did. I missed all of you. I missed our prepping meetings, lovely online virtual meetings that tend to last a while, but it's always fun.
Like 30 minutes, 1 hour, hour
Yeah,
and a half.
yeah. Block out my calendar for an hour. We end up always going longer, which is great.
We should have recorded then.
I could have been a whole episode, right? But definitely missed all of you. I miss this kind of this, there's a lot of talk about having the third space, right? You have work, you have home. What's your third space? And I feel like this is slowly becoming, I think, at least for me, a great third space. It's, sharing great times with all three of you, talking about really fun, cool, interesting stuff that just naturally interests me. So definitely missed you all. So with that comes a little bit of grief. For sure, like, oh yeah, we're not meeting, and at the same time, excitement for what this new season is going to be about. So I'm excited, very excited.
Same. I feel like the break, there's so much that happened in our lives during a break, whenever we take a break, right? And but I'm also very excited to be back, and I really truly miss you all. I feel like the time we have together, it's like really helps my soul and community and connecting with one another, because I feel like when life is lifing, you can feel very alone and overwhelmed, and this space has just become part of my life. And I enjoy our time together, quality time. So thank you for coming back, and we're ready for season 2.
Yeah, this space is so much more than just what you all see on camera.
Oh yeah.
Like, the space extends to like the meetings that we have, but also like the lunches that we have or the meals that we share. So it's so nice to be back in that community, which is super special.
Me freaking out over a whiteboard.
Oh my gosh.
For everybody listening, before we start, we kind of brainstorm, okay, what are the topics? How do we want to get into it? And my perfectionism comes through. So for me, me too. I'm really excited to be back. This is really fun. Obviously, we bring in our clinical brains, but to me, it's really us four as friends coming in and chatting about something. And I think today's topic is a good one, because maybe I'm biased, but I think it's a good one just because restarting, right? The topic of restarting can be so difficult for many people. I know for me, I think, and it can be with a lot of different things, whether it's a project like this or getting back to the gym, starting to date, going back to school. I mean, restarting can be a lot. And, I think a lot of the times people are waiting for the right time. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think that's kind of what comes up for me, and just making this the right time for all of us. I think it's a blessing that we, 4 people who are very busy, are choosing to do this, and yeah, it's the right time for us. And yeah, with that, obviously, is there a right time? Right? The bigger question too, when there's a lot of our clients that sometimes, or even within ourselves, like, when's the right time? Is there a right time? And when I think about the right time, what really comes to mind for me is there isn't a right time, but I think there's so many different factors to that too that we'll go into. But I have decided in multiple parts of my life when was that right time to take those steps for me, because the right time for me will be probably the different right time for you. So that's important. But waiting for the right time, when is that right time? Even the word right for me feels very black and white. This like
yeah, this like black and white thinking, right? And I feel like life is a lot of gray, and being okay with finding that gray for yourself and that balance for yourself. So yeah, when is the right time? Do you guys feel like there's a right time?
You, in our conversation
Yeah.
earlier, you used the word better.
Yes.
Instead of right. And I think that's such an important word
Yeah.
that can be used in substitution for right.
I like that.
Yeah.
Better time.
Better time versus the right time.
Because like BD's saying, like right is like right and wrong versus like better is more in that gray area of like, there's always better times, but it doesn't mean that it's the perfect time or not.
Yeah. It keeps you keep some wiggle room there, right? It's a little more flexible. You don't feel like you're making a mistake, if you will. Is this the best time? Is this the right time? Is this a better time? Right. To your question, Vidi, when do we know it's the right time? Right. I mean, I think if we all knew when the right time was in our life, we would all like have a crystal ball or something inside, right? We're like, oh, it's right now, right? Like April 18th, 2020, whatever, right? But it's like, it's that idea of when it feels right for yourself. Like, when is the right time for me to maybe leave my 9 to 5 to start entrepreneurship? When is the right time for me to ask my wife for marriage? When is the right time for me to, there's so many things that there isn't, you're not going to have a specific like marker in your life where it's going to be, yes, this is it right now, go, right? Because you're always managing so much internal stuff to make the sometimes external decision. I think that's some of the stuff that we're probably going to talk a lot about today.
My relationship with the right time or the right decision has really evolved through time. I think back to just, it could be something silly like choosing the right outfit, to choosing the right school, the right job. I think now, I battle with it every now and then too, but I think I've evolved my decision to be more of like, I'm going to make the decision, I'm going to make a choice, and then I'm going to make it be the right time. And then what can I do to make it be the right time or a better time or a growing time, whatever it is. But it's taken a long time to get there. And yeah, I don't know for all of you, when you're thinking about making a new decision or starting something again, what are the things that you're all considering? Because I'm sure that, for our listeners, it's probably similar things, that as humans we go through with the concept of restarting that hold us back, right? Or we kind of do that tug of war internally.
Mm-hmm. I think there's different factors, right, that come into play when we think of, is this the right time to start or better time to start? And for me, what really comes about is like that concept of fear, of being scared of, if I do this now, do I have all the skills or the resources equipped in order to be successful? So, fear definitely plays a factor into whether I take that leap forward or not.
Or even kind of like for everybody that navigates anxiety or, I think, or just worriers, using it as, well, if the worst thing happens or if this isn't the right time, well, what do I do with that? How would I navigate, it not being the right time or it not going the way I wanted it to, right? And being able to kind of pull, well, if that were to happen, then this is what I would do.
Earlier, Alejandro was saying with regards to having flexibility with ourselves, right? So when I think about sometimes making when is the right time or the right decision or the right step, I think about the flexibility, but also the fear that comes with what Brandon was saying earlier, because I feel like fear will be there. I feel like that's such a natural response, right, to a decision, and when the right time is. And there's a lot of self-trust, self-compassion, and grace along the way that we need to give ourselves when the right time, quote unquote, it is for us, for whatever it is next in our lives. So.
That's such a good point when you bring up that managing the fear piece, because it's not like we're going to eliminate fear from our life. We're not going to eliminate anxiety or worry or wanting to create the perfect scenario, right? What does Outcast say? You can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather, right? It's that same idea, right? You got to be able to tolerate some of that fear, and with that comes the timing of it, right? Sometimes in life, it's just not our time to do X, Y, Z, right? Maybe life is trying to teach us a lesson, and maybe we're not being, maybe we're not listening enough, right, for that lesson, right? Maybe, and that's maybe because we're just not ready there, right? So it's part of these things too. It's part of the struggle, part of the learning process, the developmental piece, right? The emotional development that we all, I think, have to go through to prepare ourselves for maybe a very uphill battle, right? There's a lot of, I'll give the example, right, of like leaving the 9 to 5 job, right? Like, so many people, I'm sure that you all can relate, when it's time to switching jobs or leaving a company that maybe you feel comfortable with. Maybe you're not okay doing it because you don't like it, perhaps, right? Or you're burnt out. But there's still that fear of leaving that kind of cush job, if you will. Or I wouldn't say even cush job, but just the job that gives you stability. But managing that fear to leave, and am I ready to withstand, so to speak, to tolerate, right, that in my life? Have I grown enough kind of in the distress tolerance department of my life, if you will, to tolerate uncertainty, to tolerate anxiety, where I can manage the discomfort, the fear, so then I can launch into my next part of my life. And I think that's the timing piece that we all of us struggle with. We have to go through our own personal journey. And when we're able to and when we get to those kind of, okay, it's not perfect, it's not ever going to be perfect, but at least I feel more capable of tolerating this next difficult journey. That's the timing of it. Okay, I'm ready. As ready as I'm going to be.
Mm-hmm. And as you're talking about just like that example, right? Like leaving a 9 to 5 to start your own thing. I think there's also the practicality component of it, right? So there's fear, but there's also the practicality of it, right? When you think about starting anything, but in this particular example, you're talking about starting entrepreneurship, right? To leave your 9 to 5, right? There's also the practicality of finances, right? We could be fearful, but be excited enough to be like, no, like I'm gonna make this work. But then there's also the practicality component. So it's planning. And so I think with starting or restarting anything, there's also the component of the plan, right? Like, how do I plan for the practical things? Because I think, or even when I think of students of mine who, were out in the workforce and are now starting their second career to go back to school, right? And now they have kids, as an example. There has to be the practical component of it, of how am I going to navigate childcare and finances, right? So I think sometimes it's fear, but other times it's also this practical component of it that gets in the way. And so it doesn't have to be a barrier. It just has to be something that we plan for.
Exactly. It's like, okay, I can tolerate the discomfort, the fear of jumping ship or leaving this or trying many things. Oh, now I have to worry about the practical, the logistical stuff. Okay, I'm ready internally, so to speak, right? But now I got to oh yeah, that's right. I actually got to figure out these things in life. And sometimes that in itself, right, can seem like, that's too much. I don't know what I'm going to do. So we continue the wait until we restart a little longer than maybe we really wanted to.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting as I'm thinking about what Alejandro said and what Kaylee and Vidi, like there's this notion that fear, the function of it is to keep us safe. It keeps us like stable in a lot of ways because it keeps us like where we're comfortable. But it's like when we get a step out of that comfort zone where things get a little uncertain, the fear kicks back in order to be like, okay, you need to go back to like home base in some ways. But it's like we have to restructure our relationship with fear, and then comes in like the practicality piece and all these other pieces, and then we're trying to find what is our balance again. But that's what takes us to the next level of our careers for many of us, of our lives. So it's just adjusting our relationship.
I like that because through your evolution, your relationship with emotions and whenever that right time is will evolve as well. So I feel like even when I left my 9 to 5, right, and thinking it was the right time, I was kind of forced. I was kind of forced. I feel like the universe kind of pushed me that way. And I had no choice. And that sometimes happens too.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Ready or not.
That happens too. Either like you're ready or not. You got to do this. And you just got to do it. And everything else just goes out the window. I've experienced that myself. So, and yeah, that was a moment in my life where it was a breaking point. And I felt like I learned so much about myself and my relationship with myself and how I managed fear, the finances, right? Making it work, right? And in that right time, it just happened. It just happened.
As you're saying that, I feel like part of the restarting anything or restarting or starting, right? It's also an internal battle with your own identity. Like I'm thinking of even with something, and this example of entrepreneurship, right? It's like navigating your own identity, the fears that come with it, being a learner again, so you can be somewhere where I know what I'm doing. And so things like that could stop people from like taking that promotion because, if I take this promotion, I'm gonna start all over, or I'm gonna be a learner again. And so that can be the fear component. But even just like something as silly as I'm thinking about this year, I started working out, and I've always said, this is like almost like an identity, limit essentially, right? I've always been like, oh, I'm not committed, I'll start working out and then I don't do it, or I'm off on a good note and then off I go, right? But I think also knowing that when you start something or you restart something, there's the ugly of it, Yes. Like I was talking about this the other day that, I go to the gym for the few days that I have set myself up to do, but there are very few times that I'm going to the gym excited. Like sometimes I'm literally driving and I'm like, I can't believe I'm going. I'm so upset. I'd rather make dinner, and I'm angry. And then I get there and I do my thing and I leave. But then I feel good because I'm like, I challenge that identity or that perception of myself that I'm not someone that can commit to the gym, And so I think restarting and starting, like even that example, it took pushing through like this barrier of like, I don't have time for it, this isn't who I am, and then looking at the practical, time was a big barrier. And so making a plan, right? But also knowing that when we're going to start something again, it's not always pleasant, but sometimes it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that comes to mind is our intuition. I think there's this inner knowing of us when we're ready for something new, for something that is the right time to start or to restart. I always intuitive, also tune into my capacity in my body and how she's feeling to start something new, to add something else on my plate. Is that the right time in this season of life? Right, to start something new or to restart, either start it or restart it, right? Either way. But I think there's also this intuition within ourselves that we don't always tap into, and that we're not really taught at a young age to listen to ourselves. And that is a muscle brain that I often practice and also give reflective space and moments in therapy with my clients about how are you feeling? Where's like your intuition? Where's your body, your inner knowing, right? Because I feel like there's definitely that within us. We've just been fed so many different messages since childhood, social media, right? Just like everything that our identity gets lost. Right? And our identity sometimes like, who am I? Right? Going back to that question too. But I feel like tapping into your intuition is a bigger factor. If there is when is that right time to start or restart something?
Do you guys tap into your intuition? Just I know VD is all
like as
about
men?
it, right?
As men,
yeah. Like as men, do y'all tap into intuition?
I know.
Sorry, not trying to generalize here, but just curious.
Seriously.
Because I know what she's talking about, and VD and I talk about that a lot, but I'm curious if it's a different feeling or if it's a different, I don't know, knowing, or do we tap into it? Do y'all believe in it? Like intuition?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think
love this.
I hear a lot of women talk about like I had this gut feeling, but I don't hear a lot of men. Very few men. I don't even know. I'm trying to think, but like I don't know that I hear men say like, "Oh, I had a gut feeling about this," or whatever. Like, do y'all tap into this?
Should we let them in on the secret?
I know, seriously,
Should
it's
we
our
let them
little
on the
secret here.
I don't know.
I'm going to speak for both of us here, but feel free to chime in, Alejandro. That like we work in a field where it's predominantly women, so there aren't a whole lot of men that like we can role models and things like that. So we would have to follow our intuition in terms of what is the feeling? What is our calling in this lifetime? What are the strengths and the gifts that we're given? I think that maybe the way that it's not communicated the same way, though. For me, it's like this feeling of like, okay, is this distress or is this eustress? And I have to really balance out the two. And then for me, it's like, okay, even though this is stressful and it's causing me a lot of like turmoil, like in the back end, it's really this piece of, I know it'll help me grow. Because once again, being men, we always say like we're unicorns in this field because you just don't have a lot of people that you can model have for role models in a lot of ways. So we had to follow something. So to me, that would be intuition.
Can you talk a little bit more about like the distress versus the eustress?
Yeah. So distress in a lot of ways is like that negative stress. It's the stress that, activates the part of us. I always think if you're being chased by a dog, it's that part that like, we're running as fast as we can. Adrenaline's running versus eustress. There's also adrenaline running, but it's like being able to go on a roller coaster or like have your first like speaking engagement. And it's like planning a wedding, right? That's great.
Yeah.
Even like going on dates. Right, going on a first date or even like a date with your significant other and it's somewhere new, though that's more positive stress. So we need both, and as humans we experience both, but they can get confused as just like one type of stress.
Yeah, definitely. And then to echo Brandon's point, short answer, absolutely. Absolutely. Men have intuition. Absolutely. Men have this kind of inner sense of self, this men have this, we absolutely do. But I really want to underscore what Ben is saying. Oftentimes, and this is super generalized, all right? So FYI, don't hate me for this, but we're super generalized. But yes, men, we absolutely have that strength and that ability to look into and tap into our intuition, but oftentimes it's not necessarily described the same way, communicated the same way. And there's many layers for that, right? There's many kind of things that maybe are attached to that make it maybe discourage some men to call it their intuition. I think that's something that, I think Bunny and I being male therapists, fight to really kind of destigmatize and break that down because it is very much intuition. Another way to also say it, if you're coming from like, the IFS world is like self-energy, if you wanted to call it that, if you want to call it your own kind of integrity maybe as well. Meaning when I say integrity, I mean if things align with your kind of core values. So that's a way that I think has helped me personally tap into my intuition. When things align with my, deep core values, then it's easier to access my intuition. And if I'm not accessing my intuition, it's probably because maybe there's something that's happening that I'm not necessarily in full agreement with. And that creates some natural dissonance, some natural distress. So I'm like, hey, if this is here, I kind of keep ignoring this, right? So, but yeah, we all have that, and fellas, if you're listening, you have intuition. Don't let anyone tell you that's not true. You do. But yeah, for sure.
I had a feeling you did. I had an intuition that you did. I just needed to put y'all on the spot. No, but it's true. I think it I think obviously, as humans, right, we have a knowing, right? And some things are instinctual and things like that. But I think it does come down to it's the way that it's communicated, right? There's probably a lot of societal reasons even why men maybe don't express it as like an emotional thing, right? But yeah, I think our intuition is a gift. I really feel that. And I think sometimes people can also connect that to their spirituality or faith, right? But I certainly make a lot of decisions intuitively. I think leaving my 9-to-5 was an intuitive choice. I mean, sure, there were these other components like fear and practicality and time, but it was like a gut knowing of, let's just do this, and I was going to do this with Brandon and, including even this, right? Doing Evolve Your Blueprint, right? It was like an intuitive thing of like, the energy was right kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of times for men, it's very much somatic, right? So a lot of times like, it's like, oh yeah, I feel it, kind of like we said earlier, I feel it in my gut, or I felt this like in my bones, right? Which is a more kind of traditionally masculine way of saying my intuition. But it's very much there. If you just interchange the word with I feel it in my bones, I feel it in my, I just feel it inside, in my chest, etc. versus, oh, it's my intuition. I think that very much describes similar kind of things that we're talking about here. But yeah, definitely.
So we all got that inner knowing
For
and
sure.
tapping into it, right?
Yeah.
And those values. I think that's what stood out to me, Alejandro, while you were explaining that, is aligning it with your values. And if your values are not in alignment with whatever that is, then that's also like a big indicator that it's like not
Yeah.
it's not for you. And I feel like I experienced that a lot with dating. Yes, I experienced that with dating a lot because when is the right time to put yourself out there again, right? I took like maybe 2-3 years off completely that I decided not to go on dating apps, not to go on any date. And then finally I'm like, okay, am I ready? Is this the right time to go back on the dating apps? Or how do I put myself out there again? And yeah, there was a little bit of like fear. There was a little bit of like, I have to put it on my schedule, like the practical stuff, the like capacity in my body for it, the energy, like all these different factors, right? And then the underlining of it, it's like, okay, am I also self-sabotaging and not putting myself out there? And then I was also shifting my perspective with it and my mindset with it of like, okay, I'm not putting no much more pressure as much as I used to. And I evolved my relationship with dating to just have fun, essentially. So when I decided to go back out there again, I was like, all right, I'm not attaching myself to the outcome and I'm just going for fun, and just see what happens. And along the way, tapping into my intuition when I knew this is not the right fit, being able to walk away and just say and communicate with the other person of, I don't think this is going to be in alignment, and that's it after the first date or after the second date. And it's all about knowing yourself. So
Yeah. It sounds like you were ready. It sounds like there's a big part of you that took a pause, took a break. You had to do what you need to do to kind of get yourself ready and right to intentionally date again. And taking that leap to, okay, now I am ready. Things are aligning. My intuition is telling me my body's okay with this. My mind is okay with this. Practicality is kind of getting there. I'm sure that's always tough for business owners, right? Very tough, but it sounds like you're intentional about it. So you're making that space and that energy for it.
yes. Yeah. So there's a lot of factors that I did really consider. And I decided, okay, this is the right time. It was my decision,
Yeah, stars are
Still in
aligning.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
When it comes to restarting, right, when we think about our listeners or even ourselves, what do y'all think about motivation and its involvement in starting something or restarting something? Is it a prerequisite? Do we need to be motivated always to do the things that we want to do? Or what is it? What do we need for anybody that's trying to start something or restart something? Again, it could be anything as big as going back to school or starting a business to, I really want to restart walking every day, Do y'all think that motivation plays a big factor, or what are your thoughts on that? Because I think that sometimes can even, again, when we think about barriers, I hear a lot of people, including myself, right? Like, I just don't feel motivated, right? And so not having enough motivation becomes the barrier, and then people just don't start, right? But do you all think we need it?
Motivation for me, it kickstarts something, and then it kickstarts, but then I notice it dies off, and that's where determination kicks in, and it's like it flip-flops. So it goes motivation, determination, motivation again as you hit certain goals. Because if I use like my health journey as an example, so as I'm going to the gym and trying to eat healthier and things like that, the motivation initially to start was there. But after doing it for 2 or 3 weeks, like if I'm not seeing any differences, like it starts to die real quick. And so I need that determination in order to keep me going until I hit, let's say, my first milestone. And it says like, let's say I went down 5 pounds. Then it's like, okay, the motivation is there again. And then so it upticks and then it starts to die down again. And the determination has to kick in. So it's kind of like a flip-flopping of back and forth. So both have to coexist in order to get to where you want to get to.
Amigo, so you're seeing motivation and determination as two separate things.
Yeah.
It seems like they come in and out too, right? Like the flip flop, like how he explained it. And I think I see that also, the flexibility with it, that motivation isn't always going to be consistently there. And I feel like this word is often used a lot, So I'm glad you brought it up because it's so often used. Like I'm not motivated, or what's my motivation to start this, right?
Not inspired.
Yeah, inspired. Right. All these words are very common. And I always ask, well, then what's your why? Like, I think the why behind it is so important for me to consider, because essentially that's the root, right? And the motivation will come when it comes, and it will go, and then it will come back again. I think the consistency is super important too. That another big word, consistency, and being consistent. Talking about going to the gym, Kaylee, I struggle too. And this last couple months, I was so consistent with myself to go to the gym.
I saw your gains, girl.
I know. So I was going solid, like 2-3 months, twice a week. And people noticing it in my body.
You're like, hell yeah, I gotta keep going. That's my motivation.
That was my motivation. That was like a factor. I was like, oh damn, okay. People are noticing. My clothes started fitting a little tighter because of the muscle gain that I was getting. And I was like, so I noticed it in my clothes. Other people were also noticing it. And I feel like that added to the motivation when I didn't want to go to the gym. And I was like, I'd rather.
But I'm going to look good this summer. I got to keep going.
I was like, I got to have that summer body. But at the same time, I'm like, the motivation isn't always going to be there.
Yeah.
I didn't experience it every time I went to the gym. I had to push myself to go, and there was many whys, like my health, right? I did like the way I was looking, just even how my clothes was fitting. And then life happens, and life will happen, and I'm not going right now because there's a lot of factors that are coming into play that I can't be as consistent, but I'm going to restart. And when I restart, I will get there, because I've done it before.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you will. Definitely, you will.
¿Verdad?
I believe you.
Sí.
Rooting for you.
See?
But you brought up a great point here about the why, right? Why, when you talk about is motivation needed, necessary, determination, cycling in and out, and absolutely. And I think when you get to the why, the what's going to keep it for you long term on those days when you don't want to, and this could be anything, the gym, restart going back to school, restarting dating, restarting therapy, guys,
I was about to say that, going to therapy,
anything that you need to like restart, right? It's this thing of, to your point, the why. So it's like the first reason may be, oh yeah, because like the gym, I want to look good, right? I want to get ready for summer. Cool. And then that fades, right? But there's something about getting into, I conceptualize it as going a little lower, meaning deeper and deeper and deeper into like yourself. And I think when you get to like the deeper whys, it's easier to stay more motivated, focused, determined, consistent in your goal of restarting. So like if we go to this idea of back to the intuition and what my core values are, if I can almost condition myself, right, to pair the reason of my why into matching a core value of mine, I find it's easier for me to stay on track. Not that I'm not gonna slip up, make mistakes, and kind of get back on the track again, but it's easier for me to longer term stay on it, right? Whether that be with dating, whether that be in life, relationships, etc. It's easier for me to kind of stay in it longer when I can get into the core values of why this is important to me, why this aligns with my integrity, why this is part of kind of almost my identity, if you will. Or something that I want to bring into my identity. If it's like restarting school, right? A lot of clients, I want to restart school. I want to kind of come back to this. It's like, well, what is the why? Oh, because it'll feel great to graduate. Cool. Why else? Oh, because I want to have a better life for my family. Great. Why else? Oh, because I'm going to have a sense of pride. Great. Why else? This is something that's really me, right? This having this to be able to provide for my family, to be able to provide for myself, and to feel a sense of pride. You're hitting so many areas of core values that it just facilitates the managing of the fear, of the distress, of the unknown, of the anxiety. So all those things I think is a great way to kind of organize, at least for me, to get back into restarting whatever it is in life I need to restart at that time.
I just had to do a little.
Oh, you did?
I know my head was going like, oh
Same.
yes,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
because
All right.
I was following Alejandro, and
Yeah.
I just need to clap.
Tracking it. Nice,
Because
nice.
you broke it down, you know, and you gave us a visual, and you just had therapy one-on-one with Alejandro, and yes, breaking down to your why and why, right? It's just getting to that core, and making it about the self.
And you're bringing up like both like multiple whys essentially, right? Like you brought up,
Yeah.
you know, internal whys, but sometimes people don't have the confidence, the sense of worth, right, to begin because of themselves, right? Like sometimes people are driven because of external factors. You know what? I'm going to get back to school because I want my kid to have a better future, you know? And so it's not really about me. It's about this kid that I now have, right? And so being able to have multiple whys, right, and deeper whys is sometimes what drives people, especially, and, you know, I think even when you think about the gym, right, like looking good or feeling good in your body, right, can be an initial why, but then also the changes in body don't happen immediately. And so what keeps you going on a day when, you know, you're not really feeling it, right? Or what are the external factors? For me, when I think about going to the gym, it's my nagging husband, because he's super, like, es un soldado, you guys. Like, I told him, like, okay, let's go to the gym. And he's like, all right, bet, you know, like, and so he's like, how many days are we going? And he's super consistent, right? And I'm like, oh, I don't really feel like it. Intuitively, I don't want to go. It's just my body's not feeling it. And he's like, no, we got to go. And so sometimes even, you know, we're seriously driving to the gym all upset because he's like, why do you do this? Like, you said you wanted to do it. I'm just pushing you because you said, not, you know, but that's what I'm talking about. Like sometimes it comes from you, and other times you need an external factor. In that case, you know, shout out to my husband for nagging at me. But, you know, I hope he doesn't listen to this because I don't want him to think I'm thanking him for that, because I'm like, no, let me rest.
Reinforcing positive behavior.
Yeah. No, but it's good for me, you know, I think ultimately, but I think multiple whys,
Yeah.
right? And knowing that forever who's listening, if you're not motivated for yourself and it's beginning for someone else, like that's all right too. Ultimately, as therapists, right, we hope for everybody, right, that you can get to a place where it's because of you and because, you know, yeah, like that there's something in it for you too, right? But it's all right. Like if you're trying to start something up and it's because of an external factor, you know, rooting for you too.
Yeah. I mean, that can just be added into the external factor can be added in your whys until hopefully you get to the internal self of why. I'm doing it for my child. I'm doing it for my family. I'm doing it for so they can have a better life. And in doing so, that will fill me so much up with joy. That will fill me so much up with love, knowing that I'm doing what I can to help them have a thriving life. I mean, I look at my parents. You know, both of them come from Mexico, and you know, came here, and that's exactly what they showed me. Just working. Like their needs were like pushed to the side, so that you know, we can have a better life here. And that piece, right, it was totally externally. But then when they saw my brother and I, you know, go to school, become professionally successful and stuff, you saw their like eyes, you saw their like their face, everything lit up. So that's when I know, okay, now it's for them. Right now it's for them. So it shifted from the external back into the internal, which I think is I think all of us believe here, the goal.
But talk about that, right? Like that's a different level of commitment and dedication from your parents, right? Like I can't imagine, you know, it's like years, like a whole life almost, you know, your kids growing up to finally see them accomplish this thing that you've been busting your butt off for every single day, right? And so that's beautiful, and I connect with that too, and thinking about my parents. But I think for the listeners, what we want you to consider is there something that you have been holding yourself back from starting? And we want you to go and do that, make a time this week to go and figure out what is it that I want to do and why. Why do I want to do it? And what can I think about or make a plan for to help me take one step forward? But as always, thank you all so much for joining us on this season of Evolve Your Blueprint. We're so excited to continue, and make sure to tune in on all platforms, YouTube, Spotify, and follow us on Evolve Your Blueprint.
Yay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.